Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something really cool today. Um, Creative problem solving,
A topic near and dear to my heart.
definitely. And we've got this book you provided. It's called 101 Creative Problem Solving Techniques by James M. Higgins.
It's a fantastic resource, really practical, you know?
It is. And I mean, just look at the people who are raving about it.
Yeah.
Allan Nagle,
Former CEO of Tupperware.
exactly. And Valerie Oberle, she's VP over at Disney University. So, you know,
Yeah, I know what they're talking about.
this is the real deal here.
Absolutely.
And what I really liked about it was, sometimes when you think about creative problem solving, you kind of think about like, brainstorming for a new product or something.
Yeah.
But this book really gets into all kinds of different areas. It looks at product innovation, sure,
Force
marketing,
management.
yeah, even management challenges.
It's a pretty comprehensive approach.
It is. So our mission today is to give you a few of the techniques from the book that we thought were especially helpful.
Sounds good.
Ones that you can use, whether you're, working on a team, brainstorming, or even just by yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. The book really emphasizes that creativity is a skill you can develop.
Yeah.
It's not like you're born with it or you're not.
Exactly. You don't have to be like some kind of, creative genius.
Right, right. It's about practice and using the right techniques.
And Higgins, he really starts by highlighting how traditional problem solving can sometimes miss the mark.
Oh, absolutely. It can be so focused on logic and analysis.
Yeah. Like, we get stuck in that.
And you lose that creative spark. You forget about the big picture.
Yeah. He tells this really interesting story about a business school competition he was judging.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Where the judges were impressed by, the strategic thinking.
I did an analysis.
Yeah. But the ideas themselves were kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah.
a little boring.
A little flat.
They just lacked that creative, that extra oomph.
They needed to think outside the box a bit more.
Right. So how do we break out of that rut?
Right. That's the big question.
Well, Higgins is all about giving us tools to unleash our creativity.
Right.
And one of the things that stood out to me was using analogies and metaphors.
Oh, that's a classic.
I know, but he explains it in such a practical way. It's like finding those connections between things that seem totally unrelated.
Right. To spark new ideas.
Yeah, like what can a I don't know, a sunflower teach us about designing a better I don't know, a better car.
Exactly. It gets you thinking in new ways, and it can lead to some really innovative solutions.
It's kind of like he uses this amazing example in the book. This mining machine called the RAC 302.
Oh, yeah. The one inspired by a praying mantis.
Oh, praying mantis.
Seriously. They actually looked at the biomechanics of how a praying mantis moves and applied it to the design of the machine.
Wow, that's incredible. I never would have thought of that.
See, that's the beauty of analogies and metaphors. They can really push you beyond your usual way of thinking.
I love that. It's like looking at the world through a different lens.
Exactly.
So that's analogies and metaphors.
Powerful stuff.
Another one that Higgins digs into that I thought was really useful is association.
Yeah.
And, again, he makes it so approachable. It's not like a super academic or anything. He basically says, hey, think about how things relate to each other.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah. Like, are they near each other? Are they similar? Or are they total opposites?
It's a great framework for brainstorming.
And he gives all these examples. Like, let's say you're trying to come up with a new marketing campaign for, I don't know, like a new type of energy drink.
Okay, yeah.
Using association, you might think about, okay, what are things that are near energy drinks?
Like maybe gyms or sporting events, places where people need a boost.
Right. Or you might think about things that are similar to energy drinks, like coffee.
Or tea. Or even those what are they called? Those fancy water things that have electrolytes?
Yeah. Those are popular.
Right. So you could brainstorm ideas around those similarities.
And then you could think about the opposite of an energy drink.
Something calming and relaxing.
Exactly. And by playing with those relationships, you can start to generate some interesting ideas.
Ideas you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
Right. So it's like giving your brain a workout.
Absolutely. Forcing it to make connections, explore new possibilities.
I have to admit, I'm a total mind mapping geek.
Really?
And I was thrilled to see that Higgins included it in the book.
Oh, it's such a powerful technique.
He, gives a good overview. He talks about Tony Buzan, the guy who created it.
Right.
But what I think is so cool about mind mapping is it's not just for problem solving.
He's so versatile.
It really is. You can use it for like note-taking, planning projects, even just like organizing your thoughts.
I use it for everything.
It's like this visual, supercharged brainstorming session, but on paper.
Exactly. It helps you see the big picture, make connections between different ideas.
I love it. But speaking of brainstorming,
Ah, yes, the classic.
Higgins doesn't just focus on individual techniques, right?
No, not at all. He also delves into the power of groups.
How to amplify creativity through collaboration.
Exactly. He dedicates a whole section to group techniques.
It's packed with insights.
Really is. And he starts with the fundamental one, brainstorming.
Brainstorming, of course. But he goes beyond the basics.
Right.
Really lays out those core principles that make brainstorming effective.
The stuff that people often forget about.
Yeah. He emphasizes spontaneity, no judgment, and absolutely no criticism.
Oh, so important. It's about creating a safe space where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, no matter how wild or wacky they might seem.
And I think sometimes we forget that. We get so, I don't know, so focused on like getting to the right answer
We can be too quick to dismiss ideas.
that we shut down those creative sparks.
And you never know where those sparks might lead.
Exactly. He actually shares some really cool success stories about companies that have used brainstorming to get amazing results,
I was just thinking about that.
like International Paper's Packaging Innovation Center.
Oh, yeah.
They use brainstorming to come up with more eco-friendly packaging solutions.
Which is huge these days.
It is, right. Everyone thinking about sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's DuPont's Professional Excellence Committee.
Oh, yeah.
They brainstormed ways to improve company processes, just to make things more efficient.
Which is something every company struggles with, right?
Right. It's a reminder that brainstorming is not just, some fluffy team-building exercise.
It can be a powerful tool for solving real-world problems.
It can lead to real change. So brainstorming, awesome.
Definitely.
But Higgins doesn't stop there.
He goes even further.
He introduces another group technique. It's called synectics.
Oh, synectics. It builds on brainstorming but adds a few interesting twists.
Yeah. Explain it, because I know it can be kind of a
little bit more complex.
a little more complex than just straight up brainstorming.
So synectics takes those analogies and metaphors we were talking about before and incorporates them into the brainstorming process.
Okay.
It's a way to stretch your imagination even further.
So it's like brainstorming on steroids,
It can be.
but with like a focus on those creative connections.
Exactly. It's about making the familiar strange and the strange familiar.
I like that. And it even allows for a bit of constructive criticism, which I think can be really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. It's not about tearing down ideas, but helping them evolve and become stronger.
Yeah. So it's like, you're brainstorming.
Right.
You're coming up with ideas.
Yeah.
And then you're using analogies and metaphors. And then you're also kind of like gently nudging each other to make the ideas even better.
It's a more dynamic process.
Yeah.
More engaging.
Exactly. Now, Higgins mentions William J.J. Gordon.
The father of synectics.
Yes, he developed it.
Right. And Gordon had this belief that everyone has creative potential.
Yeah. It's just a matter of tapping into it.
Exactly. And synectics was his way of doing that.
I love that. So we've got all these amazing ideas bubbling up, from our brainstorming section.
Right. We're overflowing with creativity.
But now what?
Yeah.
How do we actually choose the best ones?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. How do we avoid getting lost in a sea of possibilities? We need some way to filter through all that.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. Higgins introduces some powerful tools for evaluating and prioritizing those brainstormed solutions.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
I'm happy to. It's like we need a filter, right?
A filter.
To sift through all the gold nuggets. Find the ones that are going to shine.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And Higgins has got us covered. He gives us a couple of methods that I think you'll find really helpful. One is called the screening matrix for ideas.
Screening matrix?
It sounds kind of complicated, maybe.
A little bit.
But it's not. It's basically a way to score each idea.
Score each idea. Okay.
Yeah, based on different criteria. Like feasibility, cost, impact, stuff like that.
So you're not just going on your gut feeling here.
No. It's more objective,
So-
data-driven.
So you're looking at numbers.
Exactly. It helps you be more strategic in your decision-making. And then there's dot voting.
Dot voting. Oh, I love dot
Yes,
voting.
and right.
It's so simple.
Visual.
It is. Everyone gets a few dots, and they get to vote for their favorite ideas.
You just put your dot next to the idea you like.
The one with the most dots wins.
It's a great way to quickly see what the team is thinking.
Yeah, it's like a popularity contest for ideas. I love it.
Ah.
But, even with the best idea, implementation can be tricky.
Oh, totally. You can have the most brilliant solution in the world.
But if you can't actually make it happen,
It's worthless.
right, it's all for nothing.
And that's where Higgins really helps us out.
Okay, good. Because
Yeah.
I was wondering about that. Like, we've got all these great ideas,
Right.
but how do we actually, put them into action?
Right. How do we bridge that gap?
Yeah, bridge the gap between, idea and reality.
Well, one of the things he emphasizes is understanding the forces that are at play. He talks about this thing called force field analysis.
Force field analysis.
Yeah. It's basically a way to visualize the factors that are pushing for change, and the factors that are resisting it.
So it's like a tug of war.
Exactly. You've got these opposing forces pulling in different directions, and by identifying those forces, you can start to address the concerns of the people who are resisting.
So it's almost like you're selling your idea.
Right. In a way, yeah. You need to understand people's motivations, their concerns, and tailor your approach accordingly.
It's about building a coalition of support.
Exactly. Getting everyone on board. Now, let's go back to those individual creativity techniques for a second.
Okay.
Were there any others that really stood out to you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many good ones in this book, but one that I found really interesting was the focused object technique.
Ah, yes. The classic.
Okay, tell me more about that one.
It's all about combining free association with something called forced relationships.
Forced relationships. Sounds a little intense.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Basically, you choose one object. Let's say it's that new coffee mug you're designing.
Okay, got it. My coffee mug.
And then you randomly select another object, something totally different.
So I've got my coffee mug, and let's say I randomly select, I don't know, a feather.
A feather. Perfect. Now think about the attributes of the feather.
Attributes of the feather. Like what?
Its lightness, its softness, those intricate patterns, and then try to force a relationship between those attributes and your coffee mug design.
Okay. So how would a feather?
Could those feather attributes inspire a unique handle? Or a special texture? Maybe a cool pattern on the mug itself?
Oh, wow. I see what you mean. That could be really interesting.
See, by forcing those connections, you break free from your usual patterns of thinking.
It's like you're shaking up your brain and seeing what falls out.
Exactly. Another technique that uses this forced relationship approach is attribute listing. You basically list out all the attributes of a product or process,
Okay.
and then you brainstorm ways to improve or modify each attribute.
So you're like taking something apart and putting it back together in a new way.
Precisely. And if you want to take it even further, there's something called attribute association chains. You start with a keyword, let's say tennis shoe,
Okay, tennis shoe.
and then you list out its attributes like laces, sole, material, and then you free associate from each attribute.
Free associate. So like laces could lead to not, tight, flexible, and so on.
Exactly. And by exploring those associations, you might stumble upon an idea for a new type of lacing system or a more flexible sole. You never know where those creative leaps will take you.
It's like you're creating this chain reaction of ideas. Okay, I'm liking this, but I have a feeling you're going to introduce something that's going to blow my mind here.
Maybe. You ready for a technique that might sound a little crazy at first?
Oh, hit me with it.
It's called reversal de-reversal, and it's all about looking at things backward.
Backward. Okay, that already sounds a little crazy.
You start by stating your problem using an action verb, like improve the product.
Improve the product. Okay.
And then you reverse that verb, so worsen the product.
Worsen the product.
Yeah,
But
right.
why would we want to do it?
I know. It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But here's the thing. By brainstorming ways to make the product worse, you might actually uncover some hidden insights into how to make it better.
Okay, I'm listening.
So for example, if you were trying to worsen a stereo system, you might think about making the speakers smaller.
Well, yeah, that would make it worse.
Right. But then you might realize that, hey, smaller speakers could actually be a benefit if you could somehow maintain the sound quality.
Oh, interesting. So it forces you to think differently.
Exactly. It could lead you to explore new speaker technologies or different ways of designing the system. It's all about shifting your perspective.
I like that, turning the problem on its head. Now, let's say we've been brainstorming, we've got a ton of ideas. How do we make sense of it all?
That's a great question. You don't want to get overwhelmed.
No, definitely not. How do we avoid that?
Higgins has a technique called the 7 by 7 technique. It's a way to organize and prioritize a large number of ideas. Imagine a board with 7 rows and 7 columns.
7 by 7. Okay. I can picture that.
You start by putting your ideas on the board, one idea per square. Then you go through a series of steps, combining similar ideas, excluding irrelevant ones, modifying ideas based on new insights, and so on.
So it's like you're taking this big, messy pile of ideas and slowly bringing order to it.
Exactly. By the end of the process, you have a much clearer picture of the most promising ideas.
You've got a roadmap. Speaking of choosing the best ideas, you mentioned another book earlier, The Creative Gap. You said that author, Majaro, had some interesting insights on evaluating ideas.
He does. He talks about considering two things, the criteria of compatibility and the criteria of attractiveness.
Okay, what are those exactly?
The criteria of compatibility is all about how well the idea fits with the organization's goals, resources, and limitations.
So, like, can we actually pull this off?
Right. Do we have the time, the money, the people? The criteria of attractiveness, on the other hand, is about the market appeal. Will people want this?
So one is internal and one is external.
You got it. You could have a perfectly doable idea that nobody wants, or a brilliant idea that's just not feasible right now.
That makes sense.
Majaro suggests using a screening matrix to evaluate ideas against both sets of criteria. That way, you're considering all angles.
So we've brainstormed, we've evaluated, we've picked our wing idea. What's next?
Now the real work begins. Implementation.
Right. And Higgins doesn't shy away from the challenges of that.
Not at all. He dedicates a big chunk of the book to this phase. He emphasizes that implementation is a process, not a single event.
It's a journey.
Exactly. It takes planning, persistence, and adaptability.
Because things never go exactly according to plan.
Never. And he acknowledges that people can be resistant to change.
Oh, absolutely. Change can be scary.
It can. So how do you navigate that resistance? How do you get people on board?
Right. How do you win them over?
He talks about understanding the politics of innovation, basically recognizing that there are often hidden agendas and power dynamics at play within organizations.
So you need to be a bit of a diplomat.
You do. Higgins gives some really practical advice on how to do that. Gather data to support your case. Listen to people's concerns. Find influential allies. Be aware of the political landscape.
It's like you're playing a game of chess.
In a way, yes. You need to be strategic, but also genuine.
People can spot a phony a mile away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about believing in your idea and being able to communicate that belief effectively. So we've covered a lot here. Techniques for unlocking individual creativity, harnessing the power of groups, evaluating ideas, and even navigating the complexities of implementation. We really have. But there's one more thing I think we need to talk about.
Right.
And that's control.
Control.
Yeah. Now, Higgins, he doesn't see this as like, a separate stage or anything. It's integrated throughout the whole process.
So it's not just about coming up with a great idea,
Right.
launching it, and then, like, hoping for the best.
No. Control is about monitoring your progress, getting feedback, and making adjustments as you go along. Making sure that your innovation is actually doing what you wanted it to do.
So it's like a feedback loop.
Exactly. You're constantly refining, improving based on what you learn.
And Higgins, he doesn't present this as like a burden.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's more like an opportunity.
An opportunity.
Yeah, an opportunity for continuous improvement.
I like that. So it's like you're embracing that that iterative process of innovation. It's not like you just reach the finish line and you're done.
Right. It's a journey.
It is. This has been such a great deep dive.
It has been.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools now
Yeah.
to tackle creative challenges. What about you?
Me too. And remember, this is just scratching the surface, right?
Yeah.
Higgins' book has like over 90 techniques. Each one is designed to help you unlock your creative potential.
It's amazing. But before we go, there's one thing that Higgins said that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
He talks about how even companies that say they embrace innovation, sometimes they can accidentally stifle it.
Oh, it happens all the time. They might say they want fresh thinking, new ideas,
Right.
but then they get bogged down in bureaucracy, risk aversion.
Right. It's like they're saying one thing and doing another.
Exactly. And that can be so discouraging, for people who are trying to make a difference. So we want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What are some ways that innovation might be getting stifled in your world, and how can you counter them?
That's a great question. It's a challenge for all of us to think about.
It is.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, keep those creative sparks flying.